I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Tuesday, April the 26th, 2016. Clashes broke out today on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem's Old City after 8 Jewish men visiting the holy site proceeded to lay prostrate on the ground and recite Jewish prayers there, which is forbidden. According to the status quo that Israel maintains, Jews are only allowed to visit the site, not worship there. A number of Muslims in the area this morning then began chanting Allahu Akbar, God is great, in Arabic, and a verbal exchange reportedly ensued. The Jewish men were ejected from the site, and there are reports that 2 members of the Waqf, the Jordanian officials who are stationed there, were arrested for allegedly harassing and attacking the Jewish men, but that has not been confirmed. Israel police posted a response saying that 8 Jewish visitors had been removed for violating the rules at the site and that police took action to prevent disruptions and return order. They said the police force is prepared, as it has been throughout the holiday, to allow all visitors of all religions and ethnicities to practice their religion and rituals freely. The police, they said, will act decisively against everyone who tries to violate the status quo. 3 Palestinians were arrested last night in East Jerusalem for planning to carry out a terror attack during the Passover holiday. Counter-terrorism forces and Shin Bet agents arrested the suspects in the Arab neighborhood of Jabal Mukaber, but the suspects are said to be residents of Nablus in the West Bank. Security is especially high throughout Jerusalem and across Israel as a whole during the holiday. Jewish groups in Canada are trying to stop French comedian Dieudonné Mabala from performing there next month. The stand-up comic is known for his vocal anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial, and he has faced convictions and fines for making anti-Semitic statements against Jews in France and in Belgium. Dieudonné is set to perform next month at 10 sold-out shows in Montreal. The city's mayor, Denis Coderre, posted his opposition to the comic's appearance on Twitter, writing, "When you promote hatred, you promote social division." B'nai B'rith Canada filed a complaint with the Canada Border Services Agency to not allow entry to Dieudonné, who last year was charged and convicted in France of being pro-terrorist after a Facebook post in which the comic defended Mehdi Coulibaly, the gunman who murdered 4 Jews at the Hypercacher supermarket in Paris last January. Director of B'nai B'rith Canada Quebec region Harvey Levine told JBS that after receiving their request, Border Services has red-flagged the comic, but that according to procedure, it would be up to the individual customs agent who receives Dieudonné to decide whether to allow him entry to the country or not. Levine said hopefully the comic's previous criminal convictions would be enough to prevent him from being allowed to visit Canada. The American Jewish Committee condemned the New York University Graduate Student Organizing Committee's adopting a resolution to boycott Israel. As we reported to you yesterday, the resolution calls on NYU and the student group's parent union, which is the United Auto Workers International, to divest from Israeli companies. It also urges NYU to end its program at Tel Aviv University. Director of AJC's New York region, Michael Schmidt, said with this grotesquely misguided action, NYU's Graduate Student Union has now joined the BDS, Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement, which, let's be clear, does not seek peace, but instead specifically targets Israel and questions its very right to exist. Adding, the NYU Graduate Student Union exists, we wished to believe, to improve the working conditions for the university's graduate students, and not to engage in unrelated anti-Israel political propaganda. Schmidt noted that spokesman for the university, John Beckman, had stressed that BDS efforts contradict the school's long-standing policy. And in continuing efforts to combat the BDS movement, a number of Israeli university presidents are taking some proactive measures. Among them, Professor Peretz Lavi, who is president of the Technion, Israel's Institute of Technology. He also heads the Association of University Heads in Israel called VIRA. He wrote letters earlier this month to American university presidents asking them to make public statements opposing calls for a boycott, specifically with hopes of affecting members of the American Anthropological Association, who have until May the 31st to vote on whether to pass an academic boycott of Israel. In response to Lavie's request, leading universities such as MIT, University of Chicago, and the University of California campuses all have released statements expressing their opposition to such boycotts. Jazz musicians from across the globe will perform at the White House this month. Among them, Israeli saxophonist and composer Eli DeGibri. DeGibri was invited to take part in the celebration of International Jazz Day, which takes place on April the 30th. He will join the likes of Aretha Franklin, Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, and Pat Metheny, performing in the program, which is sponsored by UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, which aims to, quote, highlight jazz and its diplomatic role of uniting people in all corners of the globe. And taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Tuesday, April the 26th. At 7 o'clock, a look at Jewish commitment to social justice from the Limud Conference. At 8 o'clock, Rabbi Jill Jacobs, Executive Director of Truah, the Rabbinic Call for Human Rights, and Rabbi Shai Held, who is co-founder and dean of Mechon Hadar, talk about race in America, global warming, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's from Mechon Hadar in New York City. At 9 o'clock, Mark Golub sits down with former president of the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, Rabbi Steve Guto, on L'chaim. And at 10 o'clock tonight, a look at Israel's groundbreaking work with water. And coming up right after this newscast tonight, in the news at 6:30. On tonight's edition, Mark Golub is joined by Rabbi Yehuda Sarna, who is the executive director of the Bronfman Center for Jewish Student Life at NYU. Sarna will address several issues, including the latest BDS effort of the Graduate Student Union. And that's the JBS News Update for Tuesday, April the 26th, 2016. I'm Teisha Bader.